I like how the vote's still here. Hey, everybody.
Oh, it's us. Hello, everyone.
Is it us? I disbelieve. Still disbelieving. Oh, wait. Play.
So while people are gathering up, I have a question for all of you guys. I don't know if any of the tea aficionados out there, but I'm going to need some tea to get through this, and I have made too many choices in my life of late. So, do I go for a milky oolong? Do I go for a lavender Earl Grey? Or do I go for a rose black tea?
Ooh, lavender Earl Grey always will win.
All right, so there's one vote from Irene for a lavender Earl Grey. Two, okay. All right, see, now it's neck and neck. Now we got 2 lavender, 2 oolong, 3 for lavender. All right. I'm going to end up going through multiple cups of tea, so, you know.
I have Christmas tea that my brother and his wife got, which is made of flowers.
Oh.
And now the flowers are wilty, but it's like little balls that bloom when you put the water in.
Oh, I've seen that with like chrysanthemum tea or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, that's so pretty.
It's really cool because the flower is it's on a stem, so they all stand up when they're floating in the water.
Gosh, you guys are making me feel not very fancy. I've just got the spindrift happening.
So nope.
Fun fact. Oh, I'm curious about this teacup that you have, Brett, because I was going to go with if you ever do anything with wizards, the nice thing is if you ask the D&D folks, they have teacups that are American size that you can like drown yourself in. They're like 4 times a normal teacup. So, you know, when you need a gallon of tea, they got you.
No, I do a French press every morning. And then if it's the afternoon, 10 o'clock, midnight, 2 o'clock, I switch to tea.
Because tea actually wakes you up.
No, sadly. But it tastes good. Tea stimulates the tongue.
See,
Brett,
I
could
just
you try
always
and
say
that
like
in a more creepy way? It wasn't
Okay.
creepy enough.
Tea stimulates.
So I have to give up French press coffee. I love coffee,
The
but
tongue.
I've been like noticing that it's too acidic, and now that I'm old, it's bothering my stomach. So I've switched to cold brew because the
Really?
filtering
Okay.
for cold brew, it's like much less acidic, and yeah, I can drink it in the morning now, and I can't really keep drinking the French press. It's very sad.
I leave because you can like skim the foam on top to make it less bitter. But I leave that on so it has a little bit of bite. It's not bothering me yet. But then my stomach is not the source of my problems.
I'm not allowed to spam caps. Tyler, I have been banned from our own chat.
You've been banned?
No, I've been put on a timeout.
Oh boy.
Don't. It's well deserved.
How many mods do we have on? Because I know it's not just me.
I'm here too.
But luckily, we know what the people want. It's obviously this. We are nailing this, guys. I feel like, you know, for a Q&A, everyone has come to see exactly what we presented.
Yeah, I've heard at least 3 or 4 questions. We have answered them all.
Yes. So, yeah, if anybody wants to start asking questions, by the way, totally go for it. We got a couple from the Discord that we are happy to answer. But otherwise, it's going to be a lot of us just, you know, hanging out. E-Man attacks, I appreciate you. Well, I could start with some of the questions we got on Discord while we are assembling other things.
Mhm.
As far as tea-related
Oh.
cards for the game,
Oh.
you will probably see that at some point in the future, because a lot of the cards get named because I am bored late at night, and so they get named in ways that amuse myself. They're either references or hilariously obtuse. But also naming them after tea preferences, I feel like very cyberpunk.
Right. I mean, we may no longer have freedom, but we have consumer choice. We can express ourselves through consumerism, which we
Well,
describe as personality.
I mean, this is the true cyberpunk future. Thank you, Streamlabs, for telling us that option C was what got voted the most. Welcome, Darth Pac-Man. Indeed, E-Man attacks. That is our true cyberpunk world. All right, so I'm gonna grab some of these ones from Discord real quick. Do 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 do. Okay. Man 3 had asked, what are some of the challenges of building a narrative-focused game around an IP? Honestly, some of the biggest challenges are just the fact that you have to work and coordinate with groups of people who are outside of your organization, right? Like we have to always make sure that we're not screwing up anything for down the timeline, for example, since
Mhm.
we are functionally time traveling back to the beginning. There's also figuring out how you fit all the mechanics so the mechanics are still expressing the narrative of that world rather than just building whatever narrative, whatever mechanics you want, and then figuring out a narrative around it. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I definitely remember going through several revisions of like the main card mechanic, hitting on the poker mechanic as like the first step is just pure game design. How do we solve this cooperation problem? How do we make it more interesting to build this with multiple people? But then working it into the core metaphor of cyberpunk, the way that we're all going to lay it out on the line. We don't necessarily know each other to start, but we start to trust and intuit each other and kind of build a party that can actually work our way through this. That actually felt really good when we started getting that in.
I agree. And then when we started refining the table talk rules, so people started doing sort of more role play interactions,
Hmm.
I felt
Hmm.
like that helped a lot too. Because as silly as it sounds, simply how we phrased the table talk rules radically changed how people played. And that was a really interesting evolution to watch.
And that
Uh,
also changed. So the player decks, they have multiple copies of some cards. We kind of move them around to rebalance them as different classes from each other, but there is some overlap between them. So as we went through iterations, there were versions where you're like, okay, the rocker feels less rockery now, so we need to take a little bit of that out. And sometimes that was changing the flavor of the cards, but sometimes it was like moving it around to feel more like that character and how they played with the other characters.
I saw a ton of questions flash on the screen. I don't know entirely where they came from, so I'm just going to, or where I can access them again. So I am going to respond to one of them in chat while somebody else helps me with my technical ineptitude.
Hmm.
So let's go with, is Legends canon? Because lots of people ask this. Love Steam TV asks, is Legends canon? The answer is no. Uh, Basically, anything that Artau brings into the source books is canon. They've been drawing more and more stuff from Legends. Like I don't know if some of you saw, like some of the rock bands and some of the other stuff that we've invented for Legends has already, before we've even shipped, made its way into Cyberpunk canon. But Artal, anything Artal does is the official word, right? And so I would say take everything in Legends as stuff that you can play around with in your campaigns. Take everything in Legends as rumors floating around, and then when you see it in Artel stuff, then you know it is has the imprint of actual officialness. But I don't want to say that Legends is canon because I think that would both limit us and, be weighing a little too much on Artal, right? By not being officially canon until they choose to make it canon, it just frees everybody up. Uh, so, all right, I'm going to jump to some of these other ones. Oh, YouTube. We're also streaming on the YouTubes. That's where the
Interesting.
questions are coming from.
Yeah, do you want me to read you one, James? So I can just scroll up in at least Twitch chat at the moment, back a little bit.
I saw
Good
Is
ones here
Burger
that are in the
Sandwich.
chat
Okay.
that we could do. Or no, Brett, go ahead. Pick one.
Okay,
There's a-
Freemerk asks, when I get my product, what will deck building look like? Can we run through the basics of that?
See, I saw that one. That one's in chat. I could have done that one.
Yeah, I know. I'm helping you out.
It's so helpful, just like in every game we play. So we're actually iterating on deck building right now. After this Kickstarter ends, jump into our Discord, join us for some of the playtests because this is something that we're heavily working on. It is. I want to refine it further than it is right now, so I'm not going to say too much about it at the moment, because like with Gauntlet mode, I think we're going to iterate on it before launch. I don't want someone to see this in like a year and not see anything else and think that whatever I say here is true. What else we got? Oh, tabletop sim. Will it be paid DLC or a free workshop mod? So we are going to release at least scenario 1 as soon as we can as a free workshop mod for everybody, shared around, all those things. The full version, I have emailed and am corresponding with the people at Berserk Games. Don't have a complete answer on that front. A little bit of it depends on what they get back to me with.
Yes, this is a question probably for Irene. Were there any challenges evoking the 2013 era through illustrations? Forking Path asks. Is it futuristic but not as futuristic as 2077?
I love that question because I feel like we've talked about it a lot internally. And yeah, there were definitely a lot of times when we would look at a sketch, right, and think like, oh, this is actually too futuristic. Maybe we should like take some of the cyberware off this character, or like make the city look a little bit more realistic because it's actually in the past, and that like retro future is really interesting. So yeah, we were thinking about that a lot.
Well, and I remember when we had the discussion of 2012 is basically the 80s of Cyberpunk,
Yeah.
which I think is an amusing way to look at it.
Yeah. No, some
Yeah,
of
and
it
there's
was
there's like so
okay.
much technology in Cyberpunk that is very retro compared to how we work with technology now, right? Like not everything is a touch screen or whatever. There's a lot of like wires and buttons and things that like feel very retro, but I think are really core to the aesthetic. So that mix of retro and futuristic is especially exciting and fun to depict.
I don't think anybody has gotten to see the upgrade yet for cellular modem.
Ooh, that's one of the ones I was thinking about.
So
Can
good.
we show it?
You absolutely. If you have a way to display that to the world,
Let me
and
find it.
then we can talk about that cool tech.
But like,
It's gonna take me a minute, but yeah, I'm gonna look for it.
yeah, because there's a whole thing. I feel like there's a couple strands of part of the promise is that Cyberpunk is kind of stuck in a more tactile world in a way that is a hindrance, but it preserves the fantasy element of it, even as we're past 2012. We still have we have the fantasy bionics. Things are chunky and it's meaningful to get an object.
So I also think you need that though, right? For the fantasy and for sort of for the world still having adventure, you
Mhm.
need to eliminate some of the technology that we have in the current world.
Mhm.
And you need to provide some things that we don't have, right? This is a much more physical world, like you were saying, than what we see today, right? The cell phones are like not what we've got. They're not the ubiquitous device that everybody is using to avoid ever communicating with anyone,
Right.
which I think is important, right?
Yeah, it's a type of friction that creates the need for the players. It's where I do feel like movies are more and more setting in it's like a near modern period because they just can't deal with modern communication in a cinematic way.
And I
Uh,
feel like as you're setting up the a cyberpunk game to me is very much about community, is about found family, is about your crew, right? And to create a lot of these experiences, we have to remove a lot of the isolating elements of technology. We can
right.
still have the cold elements of technology. We can still have the like corporate dehumanizing elements. We just can't have the isolating elements to the same degree.
Mhm. You
It's
can't have
a
a party coming
very
together.
visual thing, right? And it's just like how I think it's very boring in movies or TV shows where characters are constantly like on their cell phones or whatever. There's
Mhm.
often narrative devices to get around that because it's very boring to watch. And I think it's similar in games.
And you wouldn't want your crew to assemble strictly over telephony.
Yeah,
Um,
Well,
it would just be boring
yeah,
well,
they
and
need
if
to.
and hard to depict.
when we think
Mhm.
about net running, right? While we have net running that exists in isolation, unlike even a Gibson novel or whatever, almost all the net running occurs in relation to a crew that's doing something in the physical world. So the net runner is actually intimately tied with a group of other people doing an interaction that affects the real world. So we don't, even when we're dealing with the net, right, we have it very grounded in groups. We have it very grounded in the physical world. Um, but real quick, because I see stuff flying by, Freemerk asks thoughts on competitive mode of the game. In fact, yes, but the version I kind of want to keep them separate. At some point, I would love to release a companion game that is a competitive cyberpunk game. But for right now, I'm trusting that if that's what everybody wants, people will just start playing that way. I would love to hear everybody else's ideas. The version that I have requires slightly different cards than we currently have. They require a few other elements than what we've got right now. But if people want to make a competitive mode or even talk about a competitive mode, like jump on Discord, talk about it. We had a whole discussion on it the other day and it was awesome. But it probably wouldn't be Cyberpunk Legends. It would probably be a companion game if we released it. Um, I'm gonna blaze to the next one. Do you have an idea for a finite lifespan for the game, or do you plan to release expansion packs as long as you can? I want to release expansion packs for this as long as we can. Like to me, this is a platform for delivering lots and lots of different stories. In the same way that like an RPG source book is this platform. And once you learn the core rules, the nice thing on our side is also when people have played with this for a year, I can make much more complex and very weird sort of adventures and encounters I can make more niche things as we go on because there's just going to be this familiarity in this community already there. So I'd like to keep it going as long as we can. And, thanks to all of your support, this is a really good start for that project.
Yeah, totally. It's actually, I mean, boy, what is the pipeline for the art? Because we have to be ready to be like, okay, we're gonna plan 5 new scenarios and get that going so that they can hit the cadence. It's like producing television or something.
So it's going to be really tough, but one point to that, at some point, and I'm hoping everybody lets us get away with this, if I have guards in a new scenario, well, we already have guards. We already have that card. We already have the art. Periodically, I do want to do alt art for these things, change it up, but we don't always have to. And if it means getting more adventures and more content out to people by reducing the amount of art coordination that we have to do, I am okay with reusing things that already exist when they're appropriate for the adventure or the run that we're on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just practically speaking, too, like knowing that there's a lot of interest and knowing that there's consistent demand for those new scenarios allows us to feel more free to plan further in advance and like to invest in creating more of those stories, which I think all of us really want to do.
I would love being able to get to the point where people at home can build their own adventures. Like that's really the dream to me. If we
Mm-hmm.
can achieve that, one, we will achieve something that nobody else in the card world has achieved, and two, I think then it's infinite content, right? Then we really have this ecosystem where people can, post the adventures that they make on Reddit, throw them in our Discord and stuff like that. People can trade them back and forth, and we can really start to have a world where you don't have to wait for us, right? Which would be
Yeah.
incredible.
Deep
The
in the
chat,
game
Alex
design
is
labs.
asking some good questions. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just commenting on the way that we're approaching that because it is something we are working through every day.
So the chat,
Do you,
Alex is asking some questions about is there a chance of Cyberpunk 2077 characters making an appearance as an expansion or add-on? And if other Preem characters like the Young Deck will appear, like Cyberpunk 2077 characters like Pan Am or Jackie, maybe in the future. So I feel like a lot of people ask that, so we should speak to that.
Sure. So our license is with Art Halsorian, the original creators of Cyberpunk, and not with CDPR. The way that the license works, those characters are CDPR characters. Hopefully in the future, we will be able to talk to CDPR and figure out and go, hey, we'd love to make a adventure further down the timeline. Can we use some of your characters? And hopefully they go yes. But right now the answer is no. Our license is specifically an RTAL license, so it's everything going up to that CDPR part of the timeline.
But there are characters that existed before that 2077 part of the timeline. And those
Yeah.
are fair game.
Yes, characters that still exist in 2077 but were invented before that, absolutely. But it's also why our Johnny looks like the original Johnny and not 2077 Johnny, for example. Darth Pac-Man, I think we have a couple other great questions, but Darth Pac-Man asks, Edge Runners would be CDPR 2 then. So that's even more complicated, right? Because if I remember right, Studio Trigger and CDPR, that is a licensing ball of string that I want to pluck at someday because I love Edge Runners. But that is many weeks of James's life.
It's only 7 time zones. I don't know what you're complaining about.
I guess I'll just stay up. Oh wait, we're already there.
P.S. Writer said, speaking of art, how do you find and choose artists to work with? The answer is hours and hours of trolling the internet And sometimes people email us. So yes, please feel free to email us. You can contact us via the website, or you can reach out via our Discord. And whenever we get portfolios, I look at them all. And some folks who we ended up working with and who we are still working with came because they made awesome cyberpunk fan art and we found them online. Or they sent us a cold email and had a great portfolio and we started talking. So that absolutely is one way that we find people. And I love getting those emails.
Lovestein TV asks, when creating this game system, did the Cyberpunk IP just naturally fit into your idea of what this game could be? Or do you have any other ideas of IP / your own concepts? Love the system being set in the Cyberpunk universe. So eventually I'd love to do some stuff, in our own IP and all that, but there's a couple of realities. When Mike said, do you want to do it with Cyberpunk? One, I love Cyberpunk. Two, I knew that if we really want to take this company and have it be more than, a pet project or a hobby thing, but really do this with our lives, which most of us here want to, it was much more likely to actually take off if we started with Cyberpunk. That said, a lot of the mechanics and things like Brett was saying earlier, the poker system, all this, we felt like fit really well with Cyberpunk, better than, like, I feel like we really lucked out. Like, there's a lot of IPs we could be working with. I love Cyberpunk. I kind of feel like the way I was building this initially, even before we had Cyberpunk, was sort of a cyberpunky world anyway. So, it fit fairly naturally. So we kind of lucked out there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to tangent it a little bit, there's a big thing in games where the story, the genre that you pick, sets your story template, which is kind of huge for the success of game narratives that you're going to do. Having Cyberpunk a world of it's kind of like sci-fi noir fits the role of the player who needs to be introduced into the world and is learning things about it super well. And so it makes our narratives a lot stronger than they could be if you're taking on the role of a character more embedded in a more known world.
And I feel like being able to do the beginning of the timeline was phenomenal for us because it let us have new players enter sort of at the beginning of a very rich universe that has a lot of lore and sort of not have a lot of the barrier of expecting people to know that because their characters naturally wouldn't, because a lot of this stuff hasn't occurred yet, right? Towers haven't gotten bombed, all these sort of things. And so that was super advantageous for us too, as we were trying to figure this out, is okay, how do you bring in, what's the new player experience? How do you bring in new players who maybe haven't played a Cyberpunk game or don't know a lot about this world, or, have been invited by their friend who's super excited about Cyberpunk. So we have to have plenty of stuff for that person to gravitate to without making the person who has just entered the world of Cyberpunk lost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think we could expand more on the concept of noir and cyberpunk.
I think.
Just as a story frame, the frame of person falling into a world that is darker and more set against human life than they expected sets an expectation for where the character journey goes. It moves the protagonist out from a heroic encounter um, into reserving like the protagonist is fighting for a small measure of personal triumph while knowing that they've lost the battle. I feel like that's kind of the fundamental story arc that it sets from the get-go, and Cyberpunk definitely follows that to tell a story of a future that feels relatable to us.
And I would just add to that it's interesting from a purely prose and writing standpoint. Cyberpunk has a huge advantage when we're building a card game because Cyberpunk is naturally beat. Like the genre, the writing style that you see from the moment that you get a sky tuned to the color of a dead television channel, it's always propulsive, right? It's always got this very beat influenced prose style, which lets me do things like, say, monitor green, harsh light glow, rather than build those out into full sentences, which is actually super important because the compressed writing style and the propulsive writing style not only lets us push the action continuously, but also lets us get more raw information on a card. Because you'd be shocked at how few sentences you can put on a single card and still have the text be a readable size. And there are places where I'm pushing that. I know that.
Yeah.
But
It
like,
actually makes me think of like, I mean, English, you need to structure your sentences grammatically. Uh, unlike, you don't have as much of a burden with other languages, but it also gives us a lot of style to play around with. So it, in this case, it fits with a terse style, a terse yet somewhat purple style.
yes.
It is, right?
Uh,
Because it's not minimal. It's very
No.
descriptive, but it's
Hmm.
descriptive in the most concise way possible.
Hmm.
And it I feel like this is something that people are used to from like cyberpunk or tech noir kind of genre in film too.
and it's funny because you're right. What Cyberpunk does, like Gibson's talked about this a lot, but it provides visuals and drops articles, right?
Yeah.
And I was joking about this on the Discord earlier today, but when I literally say monitor green, harsh light glow, right? You get a sense of what's going on. You get a sense of that glow from the monitor. I have dropped everything but the descriptors, and that allows me to make the descriptors, as Brett was saying, as purple as possible, right? Like as uh like vibrant and over the top. I get to spend more time on descriptors of the action and descriptions of the physical settings than I would in other cases, right? One of the big transitions from the sci-fi of the 70s to the cyberpunk of the 80s was how much time was spent on things like fashion and architecture and all that. All that was an afterthought if it was even featured in early sci-fi, right? Because what they cared about was the hard science and all that. And even when we
Isn't
started getting more character work, we didn't get those visual elements and those elements of style.
the I feel like the brand and fashion focus really comes from Gibson because that's something that he's more different than other genre writers
Mhm.
in that aspect.
I
Well,
feel
he's a
like
When
little
I
less
think
of a
about other
nerd, of a
sci-fi that I
traditional
really
nerd.
love that kind of qualifies in this genre, like I grew up reading a lot of Philip K. Dick, who I would say like sometimes really qualifies as cyberpunk, but he doesn't write that way at all. Like I don't think he spends a lot of time describing how people look or the fashion or things like that. Like it's not his critique is much more like I don't know. I feel like it's there's a lot more focus on the individual experience. And of course,
Mhm.
like he wrote the book that became Blade Runner, but there's I find him very different from Gibson.
Well, and I mean, it's funny how different in some ways Do Androids Dream is from the Blade Runner universe that we get in the cinematic version.
Hmm.
But I think that it was Stevenson who cemented, right? Like, I think that Gibson delivered this and set it as part of the genre. And then Stevenson really followed in that pattern and cemented it as okay, yes, these elements are core elements of the cyberpunk genre. Because by that point, you had like a full generation of cyberpunk writing that cared about these things. But I know we have a lot of other questions. So does somebody want to grab another question? Because I could talk about this forever.
Yeah, Rockin' Hawk asks, do you think you'd release any expansions expanding on the other areas of the universe? For example, Dogtown and Night City or other cities in the NUSA?
So hopefully, eventually, I have one that I really want to do. I want to do a nomad drive basically across the Southwest, like a whole convoy drive. I kind of want to model it on the absolute best, like on like Blood Meridian or Lonesome Dove or any of these other like famous Western novels.
No, you want to model it on the mini boom and trucker movies of the late 70s.
Oh, I'll let you do an expansion that is exactly that. I feel like there's more drugs in those movies. But I would love to do more places. There's also a lot of other things that we want to explore, right? I really want to do a expansion that focuses on Trauma Team, where you play as Trauma Team, because I've always found that to be one of the most fascinating parts of the Cyberpunk universe. And there are clearly like very meaningful, very poignant stories to be told as Trauma Team, right? Like, how do you do that day in and day out? How do you even hold it together being a normal person on an ordinary salary, and you get two calls, and one's like a mom bleeding out on a silver plan, and the other one's an executive who's like under fire on a platinum plan, and you ignore them all, right? Like, I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. I think there's interesting stuff for media. I would love to do a corpo adventure. So yeah, there's a lot of aspects of this world I would love to explore.
Yeah, pattern recognition is totally. I do it. If you guys haven't read the 2000s Gibson, it feels very different than his 80s stuff at first, but then you're like, oh no, this guy is still hyper fixated on very specific material goods. He's just kind of changed to the material goods of the 2000s and the paranoid fantasies of the 2000s, like intelligence agencies, what is actually achievable at that point, and or just like a half step beyond what people are doing.
And I also like going back to his very first work. I think that Burning Chrome is always fascinating because it's some of it is pure cyberpunk, but some of it's looking at the other aspects, but still retains like it takes traditional sci-fi, but still retains a lot of those elements of architectural curiosity, of like style and fashion to explore in a traditional sci-fi setting. And for anyone who hasn't, uh, his poem Agrippa, Book of the Dead, I also think is fascinating in terms of use of materials. And that's all I will say.
Hey James, how would you go about introducing people to modern poetic?
Like to modern poetic form.
Like, what is the introduction for how to read poetry? Because I think I have a concise answer.
I would love to hear your answer.
Hear your
Because my
answer.
answer is hand them a book of T.S. Eliot and walk away.
No.
So you
No,
might have.
so here's the thing. You can't walk away
Blake,
because
come
what
on.
they
Start with William Blake. No, I want to hear Brett's answer.
my answer is to have a second person and read it out loud to them. I think that is what
Or
unlocks it, and yeah, you should read the whole book. Yeah, but having it both be a performance and being spoken, and I think it's not just spoken; it's also performing it for another person is what makes it make so much more sense.
I agree with Jack Attack, who says read it out loud yourself, because I think that you can get that from it just by reading it out loud yourself.
And I mean, as much as I joke, I do think that having people to discuss poetry with is always valuable. Like there's a very personal experience to poetry, but also depending on what poetry you're reading, especially if you're reading like modernist poetry, um, having someone to help just work through some of the metaphor and discuss its possible meaning. And I also find it always a fascinating starting point because there's poetry is the most compressed form of written communication that we sort of have. And as such, the ability to see very different things by looking at it from different angles or different life perspectives is always not only compelling to me, but I learn a lot both about people and myself by how two different people read the same poem.
Also, good for reading comedy. I read the first 6 chapters of Catch 22 to my wife when we had a unplanned emergency room visit, which helps break the tension when you're reading about major.
I have to give my husband a shout out because when I was pregnant and suffering from migraines and vomiting pretty much every day for 9 months, I couldn't do anything, and
Well,
I loved to read, and I couldn't read, so I couldn't pass the time. I was just lying there in pain all the time, and he read like the entire Broken Earth trilogy to me out loud.
Awesome.
I do actually feel like reading out loud, like I was thinking about it the other day, how many activities we have lost in our modern world, and like reading aloud to each other is one of those things that I think is awesome. I love, and I feel like we've lost a little bit. It was actually part of the reason that the instructions on these cards involve, take the top card of the scenario deck, read it aloud to everybody, so everybody can sort of participate in storytelling with one another.
Yeah.
And there's so many.
Why would you do that when you could all look at Instagram on different phones in different rooms alone?
I was talking to somebody about singing because, like, I used to play a lot of music, and I grew up in a punk rock band, and it's so funny when you read older novels. One thing that happens is everybody just like somebody will sing to everybody, or the family will gather around the piano and they'll just sing, and it doesn't matter. It's not about like, are people good, right? Like, you read anything about, say, the American Civil War or whatever, and everybody just breaks out into song literally all the time in the actual historical version. And it was used to be an activity, a communal activity that we would just do, right? Reading to each other and storytelling was another one. And it's always really interesting to me. And one of the things I think about a lot when I think about this cyberpunk future is all these activities that we lost that were community things. And I think we try and bring some of that up, especially in some of the art for some of the Nomad stuff. Because the Nomad is a big contrast, right? They're a communal group in a way that most people who live all their time in Night City just don't experience.
Mhm. They get the phone a friend option.
Now I really want a cyberpunk musical.
Oh,
I want
yes.
that too, Tyler. I want that
It-
too for us.
What was
We've
what was the organ harvesting one?
Oh, you mean Repo, the genetic opera with
I
Paris
thought it was
Hilton?
Repo. I was like, but wait, am I thinking Repo Man? Yes.
No,
Repo.
no, you're thinking of Repo, the genetic opera that I've seen 3 times, and I can't recommend it, but it's a lot of fun. And what's her name? Brightman. What's her first name? Sarah Brightman is
Mm,
in it, and she sings. It's great.
nice.
We so
It
we
is the closest
I
that we'll
love
get
this.
to a big budget cyberpunk musical right now.
I love this philosophical conversation about art and poetry and stuff, but we do also have a lot of questions about like the game, so maybe we should answer a few of those. Um, James, I think you should answer this one. Okay, so Joso UK says, I was wondering about the single player version. How does this line up difficulty wise? I understand the mechanics of it, making it more puzzle than communication, but so many single player games can become easy. So have you played it a lot, and how does that line up challenge wise? I think this is a great question.
So I will say that at this point, I don't. It's not that the single player version is easy, but like when I do single player runs at this point, I challenge myself for minimal damage, right? Like, I tell myself that my real health is actually 5 instead of 20, and see if I can make it through. Um, I think that your first run on single player will be as difficult, if not more difficult, than playing it with a group. But if you do it a bunch and you know what's in all the decks and you know what's in the sort of both in your decks and the coming up in the scenario decks, it does get easier. Gauntlet is still tough as nails. I actually really enjoy just like doing Gauntlet. Like, sometimes late at night, I will just crack out the physical decks that I've got here and run Gauntlet solo, and that forces me to really think through how to get the absolute maximum out of cards, right? It's actually what gets me to think about not only the edge cases, but like the super weird combos and the ways that and the outs, right? Like the ways in which I can do things that will give me a chance to succeed, the best possible chance to succeed. And so I really like if you're looking for challenge, run Gauntlet. It will kick you around a lot. If it stays even relatively similar to the current version, if you're doing it solo, like there are going to be times where you will die on like encounter 2 or encounter 3. And if you really want to make it all the way, you're really going to have to start thinking through the problems. And because the problems continuously change, I still find that interesting.
Hmm.
Oh, Comet wants to know about hard mode. Great question. So hard mode is just a replacement of existing stuff. So we're going to give you a bunch of cards that are basically the same as stuff that's already existing in the scenarios. You're going to pull those out. And you're going to pop these in. The hard mode cards are substantially more difficult. It is. You have to really want to do hard mode. Like you and your crew have to genuinely be like, okay, we're serious about finding the answers here. We are serious like card game players. We like the strategy as much as the communication, and we want to push our communication to the limit. I encourage people to. I will probably do this in a literal, actual piece of paper that you receive with everything, but I encourage people to play through once without being on hard mode, and then maybe trying it on hard mode. So yes, Comet specifically in this case, it is numerically and mechanically more challenging versions of things. Not everything has the exact same mechanics, but it is mostly obstacles and traps that have been replaced. It's not like there are new decks with different paths or anything like that. Lovestein TV, this is really testing the waters. Lovestein TV asks, will future scenarios come with hard mode as well? This is sort of testing the waters. In future scenarios, when we have a lot more, I want to basically put a difficulty rating on the scenarios so you and your crew know what you're going into. And then I want to release some nightmare scenarios. Like, I Numbers Guy and I go back and forth a lot on this. I want to release some scenarios that I know will lose money, but that I would really like to play, that 100 people in the world would really enjoy, that I'm one of.
Hmm. Hmm. It's honestly okay. There's a continuum between being a game designer, being a game master, and sadism,
Mm-hmm.
where your job is to entertain people, but the way that you do challenge is you need to frustrate them in a way that you know will make them enjoy it more. It was revelatory when I went back a few years ago to play Marathon. And I realized they were in that same conversation. They're building these mazes. They're like, I love to kill you, and you love it too. You love to die in this, don't you? You love it when you get frustrated and lost. And it's like, yeah, that is game design. I know that it's working when somebody is screaming.
Doesn't matter who, so long as someone's screaming. Well, it's funny because I do feel like there is this balance that we've sort of lost in AAA gaming where we spent so much time, people probably heard me say this before, but we spent so much time on polish in AAA. Sometimes we lose track of actually making sure that the core game is good. And one of the things that I really want to make sure we do with this company is that we're more focused on the core. Like there are going to be rough edges. You guys are going to see them. I trust in your indulgence because we're going to get more cooler stuff. We're going to give you cool ways to play with all your cards rather than not do it because it's not polished. And I think that of late we have lost a little bit of. I mean, I don't think that marathon levels were.
Yes. Yeah. I actually, one of my side projects is making more marathon levels. I mean, the
Maybe
shooting is
someday
not
we'll
good.
release those. Oh, I see another question by PS Writer. Will future scenarios require having played the other scenarios? Will it be sequels or standalones? Okay, so this is going to come in two different formats. You've got your campaigns, which will be linear scenarios, probably somewhere between 6 and 8 scenarios per campaign. And then you will have your one-off scenarios. We're trying to release basically one campaign a year and then some one-off scenarios separately. The campaigns will come with probably half or a little bit more than that of the campaign in a core box to start, and then we will release the remaining scenarios in that campaign over the course of the year. Those future scenarios in the same campaign, those, I mean, you don't have to, but I would very much recommend playing the rest of the campaign before you try and jump in on those. Whereas the one-offs, the sort of side missions, you'll be able to just jump into, and each new campaign is a fresh starting point. So you'll be able to sort of, if you've already built up a character and done some other stuff in other campaigns, you'll be able to bring some of that in. But if you want to jump in fresh, those will be great jumping in points.
And you see the question from Lemur Lord 12. What are some of your thoughts and wishes for the future of the company beyond Cyberpunk Legends?
So I don't know how much of this I can talk about right now, but I love Cyberpunk. I love Cyberpunk Legends. I want to focus on that for right now. In the long run, there are other IP I'd like to work with. I have some thoughts on other game types I want to make. If any of you guys have played games like Dark and Darker or Hunt Showdown or something like that. I don't necessarily want it to be PvPvE, but I do want to do some extraction stuff. I have ideas for how to build an extraction card game that I think could be very cool with some of the IP out there. And I want to make sure that we expand, but at the same time, I want to focus on cards, right? Cards are what we're good at. Cards is what this team like has the most experience in. So it'll be figuring out new things to do with cards. I want to keep innovating. I mean, I know that's pretentious to say, but like, I want to keep finding things that I think the card medium has been so underutilized, and for so long we have just seen so many rehashes of Magic or Pokemon, and those are great games. Like, don't get me wrong, but I really want to explore all the other things we can do. And so, yeah, those are some of the random thoughts.
Cards are interesting. Sean M355 asks, is the base box going to contain all of the first campaign?
The base box will not contain all of the first campaign. I'm excited for where we end, especially if we hit the million. We hit the million, I'm very excited for where we're going to end this. But we will have additional scenarios in that campaign coming out after that. There's some other things I want to explore. At some point, I will stream what I'm cooking for the next scenario in that campaign, because it might not work. It is bonkers. It literally involves me taking an X-Acto knife to some cards, but there's a couple other things. I want this first campaign to go for a little bit because I want people to really get a chance to build up their characters, to like explore a little bit more than just 3 or 4 scenarios is going to give you.
Forking Path asks, do you carry your deck from campaign to campaign?
So, this is something that we're experimenting with for campaign 2. I think there will be deck building rules. I have a feeling we're going to have to, depending on the difficulty of the various campaigns, basically say, okay, you might have to strip down some stuff from your deck, but any of the upgrades that you pulled from the previous campaigns will be in your upgrade pool. So you can buy upgrades as you're going through, not only the upgrades from this campaign, but all the ones from the previous ones. And you'll have a little bit of deck building options you wouldn't have otherwise as you go into new campaigns. But I want new campaigns to also be a valid starting point for any player. So we're going to have to like work on that balancing act.
All right. Lord Jesus Crust asks, if an FBC story is ever considered, how would that be handled? A new set of character cards or equipment cards?
I mean, it's difficult because at that point that you're at like full body conversion, it's kind of like playing a max level D&D character, right? It's very hard to balance for. So I think those would have to be a separate campaign and just probably not have like we would just have to be an absurd power level, right? Like everything would have to be an absurd power level that probably doesn't interact quite as much with some of the other earlier campaigns.
It's like you're playing in Balatro million point hands.
Yep, exactly. Um So I'm going back a little bit. You feel free to keep asking. I'm going back to make sure that we didn't miss anything, which I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely have one that I can answer while you're looking for one. So somewhere down the line, which I see other people echoing, I'm sorry I don't see who first asked it, about whether puzzles will be randomized or replayable. So right now, they are entirely fixed. I've always had a great time playing with teams who I've seen it before. Like I obviously know what's coming up, but nobody else does. And like watching other people talk about it, it is actually super fun to watch everybody else like sort of puzzle their way through while you're just sitting there going, "Oh no." There are things that I want to do eventually as we build out the build your own adventure mode. Part of that is going to come with a bunch of puzzles. I want to make puzzle packs and that sort of thing, which are semi-interchangeable, so that way you can, if you want to do this again, you could swap out the puzzles for other puzzles. But due to the limitations of like the way card medium works, it's relatively difficult to do randomized or even quasi-randomized puzzles. And most of the ways that you can do it eat a lot of deck space, right? Like I might be able to pseudo-randomize the answer to a puzzle, but I probably have to use like 5 or 6 cards to do that. And is that better than having another like 2 encounters or an extra 3 story cards in the deck? Most of the time I felt like that trade-off's not worth it.
All right. There was a question a while back. Let me see.
Also, while we're figuring this out, how long did we say this was going to go for? Did we say 2 hours? Did we say 1
had a
hour?
book for an hour. Yeah.
That's what I thought. So we are like already done. I'm happy to hang out for a little bit longer. I just want to make sure that everybody like was aware where we're at.
Yes, I am balancing several competing responsibilities at the moment.
I understand this.
I also have to
I've
go in a
also
minute
heard a lot
because
of
I only had
Discord
an
pings.
hour, but we had a good question, and let's see. I think you asked it twice, Chat Alex, about the materials for the add-ons, the mega mat, the deck boxes, all that stuff. I would love to give you guys a sneak peek at how they look, and I'm actually working with one of our artists on renderings and mock-ups for the deck boxes like this week, and waiting with bated breath for later the latest renderings so that I can show them to people. As far as the materials, I don't think we have actually 100% chosen our manufacturing partners for those yet. James, correct me if I'm wrong. But
So
we are working with them on the materials currently.
I know that we were talking to. Yeah, I probably shouldn't say anything actually, because like I could answer that, but I don't want to be wrong or say we're going to work with somebody who we're not going to. I don't know if many of you guys heard me express this before, but thanks to all of you and the incredible level of support that you all have offered. People who weren't returning my emails 3 weeks ago have been reaching out to us. We might be able to upgrade some of the manufacturing at effectively no additional cost because we have access to manufacturers, we have access to other things that we didn't have access to before. So, one, thank you, everybody. And two, because those conversations are ongoing, I probably shouldn't say anything. But I will happily update I will put an update on the Kickstarter when we have some definitive answers in that section.
Mm-hmm. And all the cards that we already printed, there's special secret cards now.
Yes, all the cards
Yes,
that we ordered
gold-plated
printed-
mats, Phantom X79. You heard it here first. Gold-plated mats, everybody.
Perfect. With no notes. Nothing. Let me tell
if
you what
only.
the most shippable material on Earth is.
Definitely.
Gold.
And then I didn't want this to get lost. Lord Jesus Crust asked a question about replacing damaged components that I wanted to answer. So if you accidentally set fire to scenario deck 1 or, drop it in the bathtub, can you get a new one?
I mean, if you would like to buy a new one, you're always welcome to. But reach out to us, right? Like if you destroy stuff, reach out to us.
If you destroy stuff, reach out to us.
If we have it like on hand, then it's very easy. If you destroy something after like the print run is done and it's gone and there's no more that exist, that's a little bit tougher for us. So yeah, and just contact at Night Crew or James at Night Crew or whatever, and we will happily work to get you what we can.
Is this the $2 million stretch goal for all plastic shower friendly cards?
I am totally happy to make the $2 million stretch goal something that's not that. But I know you have to take off in a little bit, Irene. Do we have any more art questions? Do we have any more anything that you guys want to know about the style, the art, anything like that? Because Irene is the person to ask on that front.
They're
We have
speechless.
a Twitch delay on, don't we? So we have to just like wait in silence every time I ask Chad a
No,
question.
I mean I'm playing music in my head.
Perfect elevator music, the Jeopardy
Yeah.
theme song.
It's just the girl from
Pretty
Ipanema over and over and over again.
Nothing
Thanks,
to ask
Comet.
of all the art.
Ooh, what
What would you like to
the
expand?
art?
I'm sorry.
I mean, I love the artists that we're working with. I love the way the game looks. I just would love to have more money to, commission more, bigger, cooler things and to do it faster, right? Like I think one thing that has taken time is that like we've gone really slow and we've tried to be really careful about how we spend our limited budget. And if we could hire more people at once faster and potentially hire some of the folks that we loved but then couldn't end up working with because they were out of our budget, that would be really awesome. I like I said, I love the artists that we've been working with, so I'm just really grateful that they are working with us.
I would just add to that there's more puzzle stuff that I would love to be able to do that like literally we couldn't necessarily afford the art on because I wanted to do like things that are stupidly complicated that involve working very closely with an artist. I would love to be able to pay for some of those. I'm excited for the next scenario after scenario 4, like scenario 5. I'm very excited for because the art challenge is actually incredibly difficult. So you're gonna enjoy this one, Irene.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
Living for it.
okay, if we can pull it off, it's gonna be very cool, though. And the chat, Alex, thank you for appreciating that we didn't do AI because one, we got pitched a lot on doing AI, and there were even some publishers who were like, "Hey, we'll publish you if you like reduce cost by using AI because it is so much cheaper. It is unbelievably cheaper to use AI, but it's also unbelievably worse on both a like moral level and on an actual art level. So,
I find
no.
it I find it so much more fitting to be doing a cyberpunk adventure using all human talent. I think that is it's thematically appropriate and it means a lot to me to be doing it. And I really love that you guys are appreciating it.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
As opposed to Cybercrunk, which is 100% AI.
Yeah, sometime we will get these Cybercrunk licenses.
Very sought after license.
All right, I think we have time for like one more question, and then we should probably wrap it up. Is there any burning questions that anyone has? And otherwise, I don't know. Is there anything that anybody wanted to share that we haven't actually talked about yet?
I'm
Well,
actually
thank
in.
you, Lord Jesus Christ, for recommending this game. Please tell your friends. Tell your friends about the game.
So, Lord Jesus, this sounds very like I actually have like insomnia, not like oh I don't sleep well. Like I have clinically diagnosed like bouts of unhealthy amounts of actual just straight up inability to sleep, and so you have to find some way to fill the time, right? And so like people often ask like why are you up at all these random hours? Why are you in Discord at 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. and 1 p.m.? And so the answer is whenever I can. I would love to know what it's like to be well rested. And maybe after the Kickstarter ends, I will take a day or two off to try and tell my body that I'm not allowed to leave bed and just like sleep as much as I can because I am tired at this point. You can see the glorious circles, but the answer to do you sleep is kind of no.
It's no.
That's not the answer that I want.
The answer is no.
But
Okay, guys,
night crew.
that's right. There was already an Insomniac game, so we had to pivot.
Yeah, exactly.
And they have the best schedules as well. They're the best at not doing overtime and working late.
Let me tell you though, our hours are great for working with every other country that I'm not in. All those conversations have been no problem.
Well, thanks, Black Muse.
Thanks, Black Muse.
If you guys ever want to see another one of these, like
Kickstarter I've been part of, we really appreciate that.
I appreciate all you guys. Like this has been much more of a success than we were ever anticipating. And if you want more Q&As and stuff like that, just let us know on the Kickstarter, on Discord, whatever. And we will find time as we can because I also really appreciate not only hearing your questions, but like hearing your feedback and hearing what's important to all of you folks, because that's one of the ways that we know, right? Like we can make assumptions. We have lots of years of game design experience, but I want to test everything. And this is one of those routes, right? This is one of the routes where we find out what really matters to you guys. And that's important as we continue to build the game.
Yes.
Awesome.
And it's one of the benefits of being small is that we can have direct contact with all of you and be responsive and actually learn about how people play our game. Oh my gosh, I don't want to complain too much about AAA.
We could do that rant for like an hour or two. It's like honestly,
yes, that's the marathon 24-hour stream.
To be there, we go. To be frank, I will just leave us on this. Also, thank you all because you have saved us.
Yeah.
Brett, Irene, Tyler, we've all had conversations about wanting to sort of get out of the big corpo space, get out of the big AAA space. So we kind of just did this together as a lark, but it looks like we might. Well, I'll have to take serious pay cuts, but we might actually be able to still live and eat food while doing this as our like principal focus, which is unbelievable. So thank all you guys, and hopefully we get to do this for years and years and years.
Yes, I've been pricing out NutriTubes.
Hey, I have survived this month on bagels and a bunch of old avocado cups that I had from
Ooh.
Costco.
Ooh.
I lived
You can make it
once
work.
for a whole year on Soylent. It's not fun. Food is better.
Wow.
Yes, Soylent was not. I tried this too. No.
Oof.
No.
But before we give any more excellent nutrition tips, we should probably vacate. So thank you everybody for joining us. We will see you when we do the next one of these. And Friday, if you want to join us, I believe we might have some special guests to go through scenario 1 again. But if you want to see how people who have never played it play it, come on in, join us for that.
Mhm.
All right.
All right.
Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Thank
Bye.
you.